Hello and welcome back to the Import Export Hub channel, everyone. Bogdan here, your biased host for the next couple of minutes. Thanks for joining me, by the way, in this endeavor. And without practically begging you to hit those small vanity buttons, allow me to cover Denmark's export dynamics in 2023 relative to 2022, as I will show you Denmark's top 20 largest absolute changes, both positive and negative, at heading level, so HS4, while towards the end of the video I've prepared also a sheet in which I will show you Denmark's top 20 headings that had the smallest variability in terms of exported values for the 2019-2023 interval, which should reveal to us a couple of sectors where Denmark has a competitive advantage. So guys, first things first, in terms of the largest absolute positive changes in 2023, the largest expansion of almost $4.8 billion was recorded by the covert heading 9999, so commodities not elsewhere specified. And this figure is almost double in respect to the 2022 one, and clearly on an ascending trend if we consider the compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years. On the second spot, we see heading 3002, who saw its exports expand with some $1.8 billion, bringing thus the overall exports for 2023 to some $4.7 billion, while live swine, so heading 0103, finished the 2023 podium, let's say, with almost $768 million increase and an overall export figure of $1.7 billion, the largest amount for this heading in this 2019-2023 interval. And the list goes on with, I don't know, unwrought aluminium, so heading 7601, who had an expansion of $344 million. But guys, this figure must be treated with caution because most probably Denmark is just the exporter on paper and not the actual origin of this commodity. What else do we have here? We see cheese and curd, for example, which, by the way, is a very important component in Denmark's exports. And for 2023, it saw an increase of some $163 million. But my guess is that given the current tensions between the European Union and China, I suspect that from 25 onwards, if nothing major happens relative to China's tariffs on EU dairy products, this figure will suffer a major contraction if, of course, the Danish exporting companies activating in the dairy industry won't manage to increase their share on other markets. Then we see raw furskins, so heading 4301, who, even though, guys, it had a big contraction in terms of compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years, well, in 2023, it managed an expansion of almost $139 million. And I'll give you an insight. Thailand contributed a lot to this increase. Then we see the waters heading, so 2202, who saw a $138 million increase, bringing the overall export value of this heading in 2023 to some $485 million. Barley is next with $130 million increase. And towards the end of the list, we see, I don't know, special purpose vehicles heading 8705, who had an expansion of almost, $90 million. Smartphones is on the 19th spot with almost $89 million, while heading 9018, instruments and appliances used in medical or surgical sciences, ends this top 20 list with some $88.2 million positive change and some $1.3 billion overall exports for 2023. So guys, what intel can we extract from this data, this information? Well, firstly, the pharma industry with only one heading confirms Denmark's position as an export powerhouse, if you want, and Novo Nordisk as the main exponent. Secondly, I will highlight the downward trend in what concerns the raw furskins heading, as here consumer preferences change, pressures from NGOs increase, so the Danish companies working in this field should prepare to see diminishing demand worldwide. And lastly, in the current context of China raising tariffs on EU goods, I won't be surprised to see China impose some tariffs on fats and oils of fish, so heading 1504. Of course, if things go south. So again, guys, if I were a Danish company or any other EU company working in the animal or vegetable sector exporting towards China, I will prepare for a scenario where China will impose some tariffs on these products. I don't want to be to sound the alarm, but in 2024, let's say I've predicted China's tariffs on both EU, on both the dairy and the wine sectors. So I would at least consider these insights. Anyways, guys, moving now to Denmark's shame list, if you want. So the headings that saw the largest absolute negative changes in 2023. The first spot is taken by a commodity-related heading. What else? Electrical energy in this case, who had a $1.9 billion contraction. Engines and motors is next with a $460 million negative change while heading to 707. So oils and other products of the distillation of high temperature coal tar is on the third spot with a contraction of almost $389 million. And the list goes on with, I don't know, furniture and parts thereof, who suffered a contraction of $171 million, but still managed a pretty impressive overall export figure in 2023. We see flat-rolled products of iron or non-alloy steel. Meat of swine, fresh, chilled or frozen is next, heading 0203, who saw a contraction of some $96 million. Milk and cream is also present in this top 20 list, heading 0401, who saw a contraction of $68 million, while towards the end of the list we see milk and cream, concentrated or containing added sugars with almost $58 million contraction. On the 19th spot we see women's or girls overcoats, so heading 6202, who even though it managed an overall export figure of some $286 million in 2023. It was $56.6 million lower relative to the previous year, while heading 3920, so plates, sheets, film, foil, and a strip of non-cellular plastic, ends this top 20 list with a contraction of $56 million. And again, following the example from the previous sheet in terms of insights, well, sorry guys, but I don't see any structural shifts or worrying things except for those previously stated, even though, as we can see here, I'm covering the largest negative changes, the top 20 ones. The Danish companies involved in exports are pretty well established on the international market. They are working in large associations, and thus they are able to cope better when it comes to shocks. So again, nothing worrying to highlight, at least in what concerns this particular 20 headings. So guys, moving now to my last sheet. As I've told you at the beginning of the video, here I'll cover Denmark's top 20 headings that had the smallest coefficient of variation between 2019 and 2023 relative to the exported values. A rough indication of Denmark's competitive advantage, And as we can see here, the smallest coefficient of variation for this interval was registered by heading 8715 with a coefficient of variation of just 0.02, some $7.5 million worth of exports. And my educated guess is telling me that in this particular case, we're talking about just one company, given both the exported values and yearly variability. On the second spot, we have heading 3004, so medicines consisting of mixed or unmixed products for therapeutic or prophylactic uses, who had a coefficient of variation of 0.023, while on the third spot, finishing this podium, we see centrifuges, so heading 8421 with a coefficient of variation of 0.029, and some $667 million worth of exports. And then the list goes on with plates, sheets, foil, and a strip of plastics. We see vegetable saps and extracts also, so heading 1302 with $315.5 million worth of exports in 2023, and the coefficient of variation of 0.0386. Interestingly enough, toilet paper and similar paper is next with a coefficient of variation of 0.0387, while towards the end of this list we see ice cream and other edible ice, so heading 2105, which it makes sense really, as the dairy sector, as I've said previously, in Denmark is pretty important. Machinery, plant, or laboratory equipment is on the 19th spot with some $720 million worth of exports and a coefficient of variation of 0.0463, while heading 8431 here ends this top 20 list with a coefficient of variation of 0.047 and some $650 million worth of exports for 2023. So guys, is this simple ratio telling us where Denmark's competitive advantage resides, or at least a part of it? Well, from my point of view, and again, I underline this is my own biased point of view, the coefficient of variation relative to the exported values is a pretty good indicator. And if we look at just two chapters, 84 and 30, it's pretty accurate for the first one because it's covering some 6 headings with some $3 billion worth of exports cumulatively in 2023, while in the case of chapter 30, even though it has only 2 headings, from a weight value, it's pretty good at capturing one of Denmark's competitive advantage. And of course, we're talking about medicines with Novo Nordisk, as I've said previously, as the main exponent in this endeavor. I won't go into details here about the spillover effects on Denmark's economy in terms of economic benefits, employment, processing, the added value of, or the, I don't know, the export of value attributed to intellectual property. So guys, I'll finish by squeezing other insights relative to the exported values and compound annual growth rates. And in what concerns the individual heading exports, the values have a great variability, resulting in a range of some, what I've calculated here, $15.7 billion, from $7.5 million for heading 8715, which is almost 100% just one Danish company, to some $15.77 billion in what concerns heading 3004, which is mostly Novo Nordisk, while in terms of compound annual growth rates, well, the contractions or expansions are insignificant really, meaning that we're talking about pretty well-established products on the international market with no indication that we see de facto a strong growth or contraction, at least if we consider these 5 years. So let's say that overall these 20 headings were pretty stable, otherwise nothing that caught my attention which is worth mentioning. So guys, with this being covered as well, that's it for today. I hope you've liked it. Thank me by hitting those small vanity buttons below this video. And as usual, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.